about to see next is a mock therapy session in which I'll act as a therapist, and I'm going to work with my client, Ashley, and Ashley experiences social anxiety. So we've already been meeting a few times, and we're going to work on a new skill today. If you recall earlier, we talked about using cognitive restructuring, and one of the ways to do that is using that Socratic questioning. So we touched on that a little bit. Now we're going to see it in action. We're going to see how it really works in real life during a therapy session. Hi, Ashley. It's good to see you again.
Hi.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay.
Yeah, just okay?
Yeah. It's been a pretty stressful week, so.
Oh, okay. What's going on? What makes it stressful?
There's a lot of work stress. There's some things going home. So definitely, it's been a struggle this week.
Okay. Yeah. What's going on at work?
I know we've kind of got some layoffs that have been coming our way. So that definitely does worry me a bit. And I'm hoping that, that's not going to be me.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's a legitimate fear, right? We do worry a lot when those things start to happen. Mm-hmm. And that's okay. That's normal. But I remember you saying that, you got those Employee of the Month awards. What do you think? Do you think that you're on the chopping block? Or what does that say to you?
It feels weird, because it's like, you never know. Because there were certain people that I thought, hey, maybe would have stayed around. But, they got laid off. And so it just kind of makes me worry, like, man, am I next? Yeah. So definitely it's some stress with that.
Okay. How's that worry impacting you? You said things have been tough around the house too. What's going on there?
Definitely been difficult with my husband. I think I've kind of been lashing out a little bit with him. My sleep has definitely been off. So some struggles there.
Yeah, and we talked about that a bit last week in the session before about how, the symptoms of anxiety, sometimes they are irritability. We have trouble sleeping. And, anybody that's under a lot of stress, that's kind of typical, right? So I know your main goal has been to really focus on your social anxiety.
Yeah.
Last week we talked about, you said, I think you were going to go out with your friend or maybe a couple friends. Mm-hmm. Did you end up going?
I did. I kind of pushed myself to go. And at first I wasn't going to. Definitely that was a little overwhelming. I think I hadn't seen them in a while, and it's a large group of people. I tend to do so, I did do better one-on-one. But I went.
Nice. Good for you. Are you proud of yourself for that?
I am. Yeah.
Good. You should be. That's awesome. Because I think, you mentioned the reason why you came here is you have been missing out on some of those things. So tell me a little bit about what you did to try to, you said push yourself.
Yeah.
What did you do to push yourself?
I feel like I had to stop so many times. Like I had prepared myself even before. I was like, okay, I have an hour to get ready to get there. And even on the way, being present, in the parking lot, I almost turned around.
Yeah.
But just kind of remembering the techniques that you had, taught me about the deep breathing and that sort of thing definitely helped. And I say, just give it a try. You never know what could come from it. So
how'd it go once you got there? Once, you took those deep breaths, maybe did you sit in the parking lot a little bit before? I hear you. So once you got in there, you saw your friends, what were you thinking? What were you feeling?
Initially it was just kind of, a little timid, because it was again, I hadn't seen them in a while. And it's just kind of automatically, I think, man, what are they going to think? Do I look okay? How they remember me, that sort of thing. Are they going to think that I've changed? So, definitely those racing thoughts. Again, just remembering those techniques and just trying to settle myself. And I feel like after a while, it was okay, it was old times. So that was a surprise to me.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm so glad to hear that. I know that, last time we talked a lot about those bottom-up techniques, like the deep breathing, things to really just calm you in the moment, right? So that's great. I'm so glad to hear that you use those, first of all. Remember how we talked about practicing in between, too? Were you able to do any of that, and was it helpful?
A little bit.
Okay.
As I didn't kind of, remembered it last minute, so it wasn't as much. But, I think definitely that'll be something that I'll try to push more when going into those social situations. So
Absolutely. Yeah, great. All right, first step. What do you think? If you could give yourself a grade for that, what would you grade yourself as?
maybe a 6.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. 6 out of 10?
I think so. Yeah.
Great. That's excellent. That's some progress from last time for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Wonderful. I'm glad to hear that. All right. So let's try looking at something else, another technique that we can use. Since you did such a great job with using the bottom-up techniques, we're going to focus a little more on the cognitive techniques this week.
Okay.
So cognitive is really just a fancy word for thinking. We're going to think about our thoughts a little bit, right? So when you were meeting with your friends, you said you started worrying, right? Yes. So you mentioned, I started thinking, what did you say again?
Just, am I, how do I look to them? How do I appear to them? And will I, be the way that they remembered me? Or will they feel like I've changed?
Okay. So the thought was that you were concerned that your appearance might not be the same.
Yeah.
And did you have any thoughts about perhaps they would judge you for that?
Yeah.
Right. And I think, that's a big trigger for especially social anxiety, but anxiety in general, right?
Mm-hmm.
We worry about what other people are going to think.
Yes.
So let's see. You're there. This thought starts going through your head. What did you do? Did you try to ignore it? Did you try to think about it more? How'd it go?
I know initially I was definitely fixated on it just because it was just on repeat in my mind.
Right?
I don't know. Could I say the wrong things or, whatever the case may be. But, and then slowly but surely it's started to, to stop or to cease. So I was like, it was better after a while, but definitely in the beginning, it's just wow.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's take one of those thoughts that you said. It was sort of a broader thought. So we talked about your friends potentially judging you.
Yeah.
Are my friends going to think that I look differently? Are they going to think, that I say something weird? Those are common thoughts in social anxiety. Mm-hmm. Let's take that broad one, though. My friends are going to judge me. How about we do a worksheet today?
Okay.
So I think this is a great place to start to sort of look at that thought, and we can do it together because this is going to be a little bit tougher than some of those bottom-up techniques.
Okay.
That just help us to relax. We are really going to put our thinking caps on today, and we're going to work as judges. We're going to put these thoughts on trial today.
Gotcha.
All right. So I brought this worksheet for us, and we talked about CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. That's the approach that I generally use for a lot of clients who experience anxiety, but other things as well. So one of the main things about anxiety that we talked about last time, maybe the time before, is those thoughts that maybe aren't so helpful.
Yeah.
They might be irrational, negative, generally just not very nice, right? So we remember that in CBT that there's some sort of triggering event that causes us to have a thought. So you went out, you met with your friends, and the thought was, I'm really worried about what they're going to think of me. They might judge me.
Yeah.
What do you think the feeling was with that?
Definitely fear.
Fear.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'd say just, worry too.
Yeah. What about the behavior? Did you notice that you did anything differently because of that fear or worry?
Yeah, that's why it took me longer to leave.
There you go.
Sure.
There you go.
Just
yeah.
back and forth in the mirror, trying to, examine myself. And I know sometimes for me, I'm just very hard on myself. And I know that day made it even worse.
Yeah. Well, for sure. We are all our own worst critics. That is true. So, but the reason why I ask about those sort of feelings and behaviors related to that is because that negative thought was really what started to create those negative feelings and probably those maladaptive or not so good behaviors that prevent us from enjoying our time or seeing friends. So today we're going to focus back on that thought.
Okay.
Because if you remember for CBT, if we can change that thought, we can also change our feelings that go with that thought and then our behaviors. So again, this is not going to be an overnight thing. This is just step one. For CBT anyway. You've got step 1 with all of those calming and coping skills. That's great. So we're going to take it to level 2 now. Okay, so as we said before, with Socratic questioning, it really allows us to look at our own thoughts a little bit deeper and question them. So, I know, thoughts just come and go so quickly. We don't usually take the time to sit and think about, was that accurate? Was that valid? Mm-hmm. Is it true? So this exercise is designed specifically to make us do that.
Okay.
And once we do that, it will help us to continue to practice this method and work to change our thoughts.
Okay.
All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is identify that thought to be questioned. So let's use that I'm worried that my friends are going to judge me. Mm-hmm. That's a great one because that is a general one that we can apply to a lot of different situations with social anxiety.
So
right?
that's the main one that sticks in my mind on a daily basis.
Right,
so, yeah.
Right. Not the first time you had that thought?
No.
Okay, yeah. So it's important to know that as we go through these, try to answer them as thoroughly as you can.
Okay.
So you want to elaborate and explain why or why not in your responses whenever you can.
Okay.
And I might push you a little bit more for some more information if we need to.
Okay.
All right. Again, the thought to be questioned is, my friends are going to judge me. All right. So what is the evidence for this thought? What's the evidence that will support this thought? Can you think of anything?
I guess for me, and having that thought, it's past experience. And it may not even necessarily be with this group of friends,
right.
But just, a different group of friends or a different setting. And just remembering how I felt judged at that point in time.
Yeah.
And so it's like I almost approach every situation like that. So it's like it's stuck with me.
Absolutely. And it does. It absolutely does. So good job. You've identified where is this coming from, right? So past experiences do support those sort of negative feelings, thoughts, all those things. So I think you mentioned that first day that we met that this kind of goes back to childhood, that, you always had a little bit of a difficult time making friends. And so I think when that happens, we start to worry more and more. What if I can't make friends? What if these people judge me? What if I'm alone, right?
Yeah.
All right, so great job for the evidence 4. We've had past experiences that this has happened. What about some evidence against this? So
that's harder.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. It's like so many times, I guess my mind is filled with the things that make that real, like, oh yes, that's a real thought. And as opposed to, no, well, maybe that's not the case, Right. So I don't know. I guess I didn't really kind of question, what would be the evidence like that kind of dispels that, Right.
Well, let's work together and try to figure out some evidence that would point against this. So, all right, your friends would judge you. Have you hung out with these friends before?
It's been a while.
Okay. Why are they your friends?
I'd say for the most part, we definitely share common interests. We went to school together, so that's one of the biggest things. We kind of had met in college. But I think, just having those commonalities, that's really what draws me to them. And, just have brought us together. So.
Oh, so in that, I heard you say that you all have been friends for a long time. These are long-standing relationships, right?
Yeah.
Do you think that could be some evidence against that thought that they would judge you?
I would say so.
Yeah.
That's now I consider it, yeah.
I think that for most people, those people in their lives that have been there for a long time are the ones that they want there. Yeah. And those people want to be there, right?
Yeah.
So, if they were judging you and thinking badly about you, I doubt that they'd invite you out like they did, right?
It's true.
Okay. All right. Let's dig a little bit deeper here. That was hard, but I think that's great. It is very difficult, especially when those feelings, those thoughts and those feelings feel so real.
Yes.
But, right. Remember what we talked about that first day is thoughts are not facts.
Yes.
Right? They feel really real.
Trying to live that every day.
Yes. We got to keep that in mind as we go through this. that just happens to be our next question. So what do you think? Are you basing that thought that you're going to be judged, are you basing that on facts or are you basing it on feelings?
Say maybe a mixture of both.
Okay. Explain that a little bit.
Feeling wise, like I know like what the feeling is that I get, like whether I'm with a group of friends or coworkers or whatever. But then I think part of it could be fact because of my past experience. But then again, it's the reality of, well, that wasn't this group of people.
Yeah, and that's a good way to think it through a little bit. Yes, this is true in the past. Yes, people have judged me. But it is possible that these people who have been my friends for a long time, it's probably not a fact. It's a possibility, but probably not a fact, more of a feeling in this case. Okay. Let's dig a little bit deeper again. So, do you remember last time we talked about cognitive distortions, right? Those thinking errors that we all have sometimes. So that main number one cognitive distortion that so many people with anxiety experience is that all or nothing thinking. Black and white thinking, right? It's either or. It's all good or all bad. Let's think about this thought. My friends are going to judge me. Is that a black and white thought? Or is there more complexity to this that we could look into?
I guess initially before just like having this opportunity to like walk through it with you, it was cut and dry. It was like black and white. It was like, yep, that's what's going to happen for sure. And like we've, discussed in previous sessions, like that's where I spend most of my time. It's like just knowing that, you know what, that's what's going to happen and not really realizing, well, maybe this could be different this time. So,
and I'm glad that you can recognize that because I think not only with anxiety, but with a lot of different mental health conditions and just stressors in life, we do think very rigidly. We're stuck in either the black or the white area. We don't really look for that gray. We've already made up our minds. Okay, so what makes this particular thought more complicated?
I guess it's, had I applied it again to, past experiences. And so I based most of things off of that. And then it's like not until I got into the situation and seeing that things were different, and it's like, oh, maybe it's not that way. Okay. So it's, I guess, actually going through with meeting with them and, taking the time, and kind of getting over my fear of, having a social type of situation with them kind of, helps me to realize a new thought pattern.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that's important. We aren't, you're talking about being judged by friends, right? We aren't going to like every single thing, every single part of our friends. We're not going to like every single part of ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Nobody's perfect. So, of course, there's that black and white area where some things they're going to like, some things they're not going to like. But we need to live more in that gray area where we can see that both of those things can be true. And that doesn't necessarily mean that our friends don't like us. All right. Is there anything within this thought, so my friends are going to judge me, that you might be misinterpreting the evidence? Are you making any assumptions about this?
I guess the biggest one is that I'm comparing this set of friends to past people.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's not the right way to be. Because how would I feel if that's what somebody did to me? I'm basing that off of a completely different situation, applying those things to the situation with me. And so, that's something that I'm like, man, that's tough. It's like, I shouldn't do that. I put something on them that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think sometimes we start reading into things too much.
Yeah.
So because, like you said, the past experiences that we've had, we might be sitting with our friends who we're not sure that they've ever judged us. We don't have any evidence to support that. But we see like a weird look, somebody does one of these. And we automatically start interpreting that as, oh my goodness, they're judging me. They think I'm weird. They think I'm awkward. Right?
Yes.
We've all been there. We're all a little self-conscious, I think. So it's important to stop and check with yourself, even in that moment, and say, it's possible. Let's look back at that black and white thinking here.
Yeah.
It's possible. She could be making that face at me. Or she might not like the smell of that food she just ordered. That's not very good, right? We have to look for some other information in the situation, right?
Okay.
All right. So, how do we do that, though? The next question says, might other people have different interpretations of the same situation? Put yourself in someone else's shoes for this. All right. So, let's put yourself in one of your friend's shoes. They're there. And they hear, you tell them this thought that, I'm so worried that you're going to judge me. I look different now. Things have changed.
Yeah.
How do you think they would feel in that situation? What do you think they would actually say to you?
I guess, I don't know. It's I kind of have conflicting thought pattern because I'm just thinking like initially in my, my mind, when I'm putting myself in other people's position, I'm automatically like thinking the negative, like, yeah, they would be thinking that. But then just kind of really, I guess, thinking about who they are and how long we've known each other and just the stuff that we've gone through. They may just probably would be shocked, I would think. Like, really? You think that I would think that? Yeah.
Can you put yourself in their shoes for a minute? So let's say it's you sitting at the restaurant and you're waiting for these old friends to come in. How do you think you'd be feeling while you're sitting there?
And you said in their shoes, it's kind of, I feel like for them, they would be at ease. They would be excited.
Yeah.
Especially, it's been a while. So it's like, yeah, definitely they're ready for this,
Right.
So.
Absolutely. They've been asking you for what? Has it been 2 years now since you've seen them? Okay. Yeah. I don't think they'd keep asking for 2 years if they didn't want to see you.
Yeah.
All right. Let's think about if you're looking at all of the evidence here. Or do you typically just look at what supports your thought? So think about when you first walked in there and you had that thought, they are going to judge me. Were you looking at all the evidence?
Probably not.
Yeah. Probably not. You said right away, I was thinking about, my past experiences.
Yeah.
When people picked on me, when they weren't very nice, when they judged me. And you didn't really take the time to look at other information, right? Like,
That's true.
Like your friends like you. They've hung out with you. They've been your friends for quite a while.
Yeah.
How does this feel? Do you think this is helpful as we're going through? I know these are a lot of questions, but I think sometimes when we look through all of these different ones, we get a different picture of what's going on, and it really helps us to try to reframe our thinking. How's this working for you?
It has. I mean, it's kind of, brought an awareness to me because I kind of, as you know, I live in this confined space. It's either this or it's that, not necessarily always getting out of that and realizing, oh, you know what? There are actually other thoughts or other, people feel other ways than what I feel that they would feel or,
Right.
So it's definitely helpful. Yeah. And it's getting me outside of my mindset, and building that wall. So, yeah. And
you know what? When we sit here and really think about it, we can practice some of those other skills as well. In the moment, sometimes it's tough, but we talked about previously, like the bridge statement. So we just have to allow for the possibility. So they might like me. They maybe are excited to see me. It's a possibility that they aren't going to judge me. We have to live in that gray area. Think about those bridge statements, the mights, the ifs. It's possible. Right? All right, let's do a couple more before we wrap up today. Ooh, could my thought be an exaggeration of what's true? So the thought is, my friends are going to judge me. And we'll take it even a step further. My friends are going to judge me. They're not going to like me. They're going to think I'm weird. They're not going to invite me out again.
I would put all those things in there.
Yeah, okay.
I would say initially, it is. It's like, wow, I can take it a bit far when I'm like in my own thoughts of thinking of something like that. But then it's like you wonder, like, man, that's probably not even anywhere near true, when you really think about it. So,
And I think, a lot of times when we are in those more intense situations that do cause us anxiety, we're really working off of emotion rather than that sort of logic and reason.
that goes out the window.
Yes, exactly. And so sometimes those emotions just keep ramping up, and it does cause us to exaggerate what's going on. The next question is, am I having this thought out of habit, or do the facts support this? I think this one's going to be an easy one for you.
Yeah. It's almost sometimes like a mixture, but it's almost like, it's a constant what I go to,
Right.
It's just like, that's my go-to right there. I just know that's the thought. The faulty thought is what I'm going to go to, and not, the truth.
Yeah. And, that's very common. We talk about automatic thoughts. Those thoughts that sort of just pop in our head. They're our go-to thoughts. We don't even think them through. And ultimately, they lead to anxiety.
Yes.
All right. So definitely important that we make sure that we're trying to get out of that habit thought. So it's important to take a step back and think about that thought.
It's a tough thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But the more we do that, the easier it's going to be. We start to change those automatic thoughts. So I think a good scenario would be, currently, right now, think of your mind like a big field with a lot of grass. Can you picture like a big open field with this tall, flowing grass?
Yeah.
Okay. So currently, you have been walking this same path over and over and over again for 20 years, right? So that grass is all pushed down. It's the easy path. It's the automatic path. We don't even think about taking another route, right? So it becomes habit. We don't even think about it. We just do it. That automatic thought. That's what this path is the automatic thought. What do you think? What if you started making a concerted effort to go a different way, a different direction? The grass will start to get squashed down there, right?
Yeah.
And the other side that we were going down all the time, that grass will start to come back up. So the more we practice fighting those habits and those automatic thoughts, the easier it's going to be. So the more we walk that path of less anxious thoughts, more realistic thoughts, taking the time to really think things through, the easier it is going to be to go down that path. Right now, you are going to catch yourself all day, every day, going to that automatic thought. But when we do catch ourselves, we can help to reroute ourselves. Oh, this is an interesting one. So we talked in the beginning about like past experiences, right? This one really pertains to past experiences as well. Where do you think this thought came from? Did someone pass this thought or belief on to you? Has anyone ever told you, or at least showed you, that we should be afraid of people judging us?
And then, definitely we've talked before about the past like bullying experiences, but also too, I think like my older siblings sometimes have kind of mentioned, oh well, that's just how people will be. They're gonna judge you. So it's always been in my mind like, well, let me already know that that's gonna happen. That's what they're gonna do.
Yep. And that can be one of those core beliefs that we talked about. That is the lens that we're looking through at everything. People are gonna judge you. That's just how people are. That's how it is.
Yeah.
So makes sense, but what do you think? Is your sister a reliable source?
Like sometimes she's not.
Okay.
Yeah, but I guess it's just, as like hearing that as, when I was younger and just thinking, what she says is like truth, because she's big sis. So it's like, yes, I know, okay, that's what she says is exactly what it is. So I think that'll take some undoing for sure, to try to get away from that thought.
Yeah. It didn't get that way overnight, and it's not going to change overnight either. It's definitely going to take some time. And, I have a feeling that if you continue to practice and do all these things that you've been doing, you're going to notice that it gets a little bit easier every day. Okay. All right. Last one, and then we'll wrap up for today. I know this has been a lot of work.
Yeah.
All right. What do you think? Is your thought a likely scenario or is it a worst case scenario? Or maybe it's somewhere in between.
I know. That's what I'm thinking. Like, definitely it could be likely because I feel like, it will be a thought that maybe other people would have.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like, I don't think it would be worst case.
Right. Yeah.
Initially going into that, it felt that way.
Sure.
But yeah.
And so I think it's important to, again, live in that gray area here.
Mm-hmm.
You know what? It could happen. Use this bridge again. It could happen. It's possible. It's also possible that it won't happen. That I'm just thinking things are a little worse than they actually are. All right, so I'm going to give you this sheet so that you can take it home with you and practice. I think this is going to be a really good thing to help you with thought logs. So next week, we're going to make a concerted effort to try to monitor our thoughts regularly.
Okay.
So we'll talk about the thought log and how we use that to really track our thoughts. So we can identify some of the patterns in our thinking. Some that you've identified today. Right? So what do you think? Before we wrap up, what do you think you would like to work on this week? What would be a good goal? 1, 2, maybe even 3 things that you want to work on?
I guess definitely taking the time just to pause and just take in my thoughts and not just kind of let them run away with me. So, and just to kind of, really, just put it in a realistic perspective. Of, like we were saying with that last question, is this like worst case scenario type of thing, or is it like common, and just really not, let those feelings of fear kind of overwhelm me. So it's like kind of stopping it in their tracks, hopefully.
And I think that's so important. Exactly what you said. Pause, take a moment, step back and think about it. A lot of time, like we said, that automatic thought, we don't even think about it. It's just going. It's just going and we just run with it. We just believe it.
Yes.
And then things might not turn out so well. We take a step back like we would with anything else. If you're going to do something really important in life, you're probably going to plan for it a little bit. You're probably going to think about it. You're not going to just rush right into it. It's the same thing with the little things in life. We need to take a step back and think more clearly about them. All right. Well, it has been a pleasure meeting with you today, Ashley. I'm super excited to start working on some other activities next week to help challenge some of those negative thoughts and to identify some that might be more helpful.
Yes.
All right. Well, I will see you next week on Wednesday at the same time, okay?
All right. Thank you.
All right. Bye, Ashley.
Bye.
You might have noticed during that segment that as we talked through the Socratic questioning method, it became more and more difficult for Ashley to stick with that original thought and keep it so black and white. With doing this questioning, she was able to look at the bigger picture and identify things that might not be true, might not be facts. By doing so and practicing this again and again over time, it will help us to create more realistic and rational thoughts that have more validity to them, ultimately decreasing our anxiety symptoms.